Please guide us during our discussions and give us wisdom concerning the issues we may face. We pray for the ability to work together in harmony for the welfare of the citizens, land, and natural resources of the town of James Island. In your most blessed name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. 15 days prior to this hearing, a public hearing notice was printed in the Post and Courier. The sign was posted on the designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or representative, property owner, and to property owners within 300 feet of the application, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and news media that have requested declaration of our meeting have also been notified. The Freedom of Information Act does not require notification of anyone other than the applicant and parties of interest. It's really nice to see y'all here and to meet in person. We haven't seen each other since December 15th, 2019. And the board members who will hear your case tonight are myself, I'm Brooke Lyon, the chair, David Savage, our vice chair, Roy Smith, Corey Hip, one of our newer members that we haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person with, and then our brand new member, Amy Fabry, is with us on the telephone. Ms. Fabry had to call in tonight because she has come down with a very bad case of poison oak that just really flared up terribly yesterday. And we're so sorry she couldn't be here in person, but we really are glad that you're here on the phone with us, Amy. And we'd like to welcome you to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We're so glad to have you as a member. I would like also to ask everyone tonight, when you do speak, to please speak into the mic as well as anyone who will be speaking tonight. It really helps our secretary. The staff members present tonight are Kristen Crane, who is our planning director. She's behind me. Planner Wood, Planner 2. Frances Simmons, secretary to the BZA, and she's also our town clerk. And that's it for staff tonight. At the December 15th, 2020 BZA meeting, case BZAS-8-20-021 at 1108 Seaside Lane was approved with conditions. Board members, the meeting summary for the December 15th meeting packet was included in your packets. Are there any changes from anyone? If not, may I have a motion to approve and a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Our case rulings from this and any BZA meeting are available for public review and inspection during normal business hours at Town Hall. At this time, I would like to explain to the public the workings of the BZA. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body established to interpret and grant relief from the Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. The Board of Zoning Appeals has jurisdiction over 3 types of cases: appeals, variances, and special exceptions. Variances may be granted when strict application of the zoning ordinance would cause an unnecessary hardship. This board's actions must be based on specific standards as contained in the South Carolina Local Government Planning and Enabling Act of 1994 and the Town of James Island Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. A simple majority vote of the quorum present is required to grant a variance. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding negate their jurisdiction over your property. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If the members of the BZA feel the need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted to the staff by the applicant or their agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. Also, we have been presented data assembled by the staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the effect on surrounding property. Our board is empowered to approve of conditions, or to deny the request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. If an applicant's request is disapproved and they wish to appeal a decision of this board concerning their case, appeals must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made, either in writing or orally. Because of this, each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in. In order to expedite this procedure, those wishing to speak will please stand as a group. And since Mr. Wilson is not here tonight, I will administer the oath. Anyone wishing to speak tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Be seated. I shall now recall each case by file number. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case with unlimited time. I shall then call the applicant to address the case, limited to 10 minutes. The applicant shall please stand and state their name and current address for the record before presenting testimony. I will then ask for all those speaking either in support or against the case, and they shall follow the same procedure of identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to any opposition with a limit of 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific findings of fact and conclusions of law. Tonight, we will hear one variance request. Variance requests must meet all of the 7 criteria in the ordinance. So we will now hear case number BZA-B-6-21-027. Ms. Crane, if you will do the staff.
Okay.
Please.
He's on speakerphone.
Hi there. Hi, Bob.
Hi, I am so sorry. I'm running late. Just gonna tap my phone coming in from you for the.
Okay, well, thank you. I swore everyone in, but do you feel the need to do it again? Is that okay?
No, it's perfect.
Okay, we just hadn't run into that before, but thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
And now we'll turn it over to Kristen. Thank you.
All right. The applicant, Mr. Colbert Kidd, is requesting a variance for the removal of a grand tree for the construction of a single-family home on a vacant lot in the low-density suburban residential zoning district at 907 White Point Boulevard. Here is a radius map of the subject property. Adjacent properties to the east, south, and west are also in the RSL zoning district and are in the town of James Island's jurisdiction. Adjacent property to the north is marsh, and other uses within 300 feet of the subject property include residential uses in the town and in the city of Charleston. Here's an aerial view with the subject property being in this orange square. The Town of James Island zoning and land development regulations, section 153.335E2, states that trees that do not meet the criteria may be removed only where approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals and shall be replaced according to a schedule determined by the zoning administrator. So, going to the site plan. The subject property is vacant and is 0.44 acres in size. There are currently 6 grand trees on the site, with 2 of those having previously been permitted for removal due to their health. The tree requested for removal is a 48-inch diameter live oak located in the center of the property on the western side. Records indicate that a plat for the property was recorded in 1969, and the previous property owners owned the lot since 1972. The applicant purchased this property in April of 2021. The applicant explains in the letter of intent, "I purchased this residential lot to build a single-family residence, and upon acquiring the parcel and meeting with potential builders, it quickly became apparent that in order to build a single-family residence, 1 grand live oak tree would need to be removed." I'll just go through some pictures of the subject property from the street. Here's the tree. Can you see how far it is? Yeah. Adjacent property. To the east. There's adjacent property marsh and then across the street. And looking up and down White Point Boulevard. According to section 153.049F, the BZA has the authority to hear and decide appeals for a zoning variance when strict application of the provisions of this ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. A zoning variance may be granted in an individual case of unnecessary hardship if the board makes and explains in writing the following. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Response, there may be extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this piece of property. The property is vacant and has several large grand trees on the property that would be significantly impacted or would restrict construction of the proposed single-family home. In addition, the applicant states in the letter of intent that this lot is unique in that years of erosion have caused the OCR line to move inland, reducing the buildable portion of the parcel. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Response, these conditions may not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. While several single-family homes in the vicinity were constructed recently, most of those were tear downs and rebuilds, and 12 of the 15 properties within 300 feet of the subject property were developed prior to 1995, leaving few vacant lots with large trees in the area. See, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Response, the application of this ordinance may effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property due to the location of the 2 live oaks and the current location of the OCR and critical line. The applicant states in the letter of intent that denial of the variance application would, in essence, cause this piece of property to be worthless and unreasonably restrict its only reasonable utilization. D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by granting of the variance. Response, the authorization of a variance should not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district should not be harmed by the granting of this variance, as the applicant plans to keep the remaining 42-inch diameter live oak on the property and maintain the single-family character of the neighborhood. Additionally, the applicant states in their letter of intent that one immediately adjacent property owner is in favor of the removal of the tree. And E, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance to the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. In response, the variance does not allow of land or change the zoning district boundaries. F, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. In response, the need for the variance may not be the result of the applicant's own actions, as the property was kept vacant by the previous owners. This allowed the trees to reach their current size prior to the purchase of the property by the applicant. And G, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. Response, although the natural resources element has a goal to protect, preserve, and enhance the natural environment, a land use element strategy and time frame is to implement sustainable and flexible development guidelines and integrate development with growth to maintain the suburban character of the town. Therefore, the granting of this variance may not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. The board may approve with conditions, or deny this case based on findings of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following conditions. Number one, the applicant or owner shall install tree barricades around the grand trees on the property as described in 153.334 of the ordinance throughout the duration of construction. Two, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant or owner shall provide documentation that the grand trees on the subject parcel have been pruned and fertilized as recommended by certified arborists to mitigate potential damage to the trees caused by construction. And three, the applicant or owner shall mitigate the removal of the grand tree by submitting a mitigation plan to the zoning administrator as described in section 153.334E2 of the ordinance that includes inch for inch replacement.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any questions for staff? Ms. Fabry, do you have any questions?
I do. Really quickly, I was wondering about the two trees that were previously permitted for removal. When was that?
It was in February. Well, it was in February when we received the arborist's recommendation for removal.
Okay, and were the other two trees looked at the time? Did they request this one as well, or just the two that were in the water side of the property?
Just the two in the back as far as I understand, but the applicant may know a little more about those requests.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, any questions for staff?
No.
I have a question regarding the third thing the board should consider if deciding to approve the application. Could you please expound a little bit on mitigation? It says the applicant owner shall mitigate the removal. Does the applicant owner submit the plan to you that you approve? Is it based on inch for inch of
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be quiet and let you answer my question.
So we consider replacement inch for inch, so they would need to replace 42 inches. And there, what we do is request quotes from 2 tree companies for similar trees that are at least 2 inches in caliber. And then whatever those trees cost, he can either plant them on site or donate that amount of money to the tree fund, or a combination of both, if it doesn't make sense with the plan to plant them back on site.
Okay, and then the tree fund money is used for,
We plant trees and maintain the trees that are existing in the town.
thank you very much. Any other questions?
Chairwoman, I'm sorry, I have another question.
Sure, Ms. Fabry, please, if you don't mind, please state your name again, when you speak, so, Ms. Simmons can get that in the minutes.
Sure, this is Amy Fabry, and Ms. Green, I have a question. I don't know if I heard you correctly, and I apologize. Did you say for mitigation, it would be a 2-inch tree, or could you explain the
mitigation purposes would be a 2-inch tree. So if the mitigation plan includes replacement trees, physical trees, then that would be 2-inch trees replaced and planted somewhere. If it includes a donation to the tree fund for mitigation purposes, then we would ask for 2 quotes for live oak, at least 2-inch caliber trees, and then they would have to be, 12 or
22.
is it 42?
22.
Yes, so inch for inch replacement with a 2-inch caliber tree is the minimum size.
Okay, so 2 inches is the minimum size, but you're asking for, you could be asking for mitigation for the entire 48 inches.
Right.
Okay, just to clarify. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if not, at this time, I will call the applicant. If you would please come up to the podium and speak into the mic. You have 10 minutes and state your name and current address, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate y'all hearing from me. My name's Paul Kidd. I currently live at 669 Lake Francis Drive in Charleston, not in the town of James Island, but on James Island. And once again, thank you all for hearing from me. Been living on James Island since 1999, so 22 years now. This is my home. This is where I want to remain and live out my days. This is where I'm raising my current son, and this is where I want to build my forever home. I have spent the bulk of my life savings on purchasing this lot. I originally did so thinking I could build a home without the destruction of these trees. I, like many of you, likely love our town in large part because of its grand oaks and because of its nature. My current home has live oaks in the yard, and I love them, and I hope to be able to have that here as well. In fact, in my purchase contract with the neighbor, I specifically indicated that I wanted to try to build around these trees and find a way to protect and preserve them. I would say that shortly after purchasing this lot, it became pretty apparent, and we had our survey done and the OCRM line marked, and really began to understand what our buildable footprint looked like. Ms. Fabry, to answer your previous question, I actually made the removal of the back damaged trees a condition of my original purchase contract, which is why that permit came prior to us closing on the property, because I was hopeful that we could build behind the 2 existing grand oaks. But as I said, what became apparent was with the slope and the encroaching OCRM line, while also creating a buffer to those existing trees, because we can't build right up against them for a number of reasons, not to impede on the root structure, but also with the size of their canopies, we have to give them a significant buffer from any sort of construction. What became apparent is it just wasn't possible. And, I'm not looking to build a huge house here. I mean, I guess it's all relative to who you are, but, when you look at the houses along, I pulled the square footage of the houses on this side of the street going off White Point Boulevard, and they range anywhere from approximately 3,000 square feet to 9,000 square feet. And, that proposed house that I would like to build on this lot is on the low end of that range for sure. But it can't be done with these existing trees in place. So it's not a matter of do I want to cut these trees down. It's that I need to cut these trees down. And I don't take that lightly, and I don't take the decision that you'll have to make lightly, because I understand how important it is for the fabric of our community. But I do want to approach this the right way, and I try to approach it from a stance of being as reasonable as I can about approaching it. And I want to be as respectful about the process as I can be. I know that y'all seen the recent letter that I obtained from the arborist. We're not trying to make this tree into something it's not. Everything that I've read and know about live oaks is that they compartmentalize damage relatively well. This is a tree that would survive were we not going to build this house. So I don't take that lightly, but I also understand that this is the only use that makes sense for this property. You know, when we go through those factors that Ms. Crane identified, I do think we fit this scenario perfectly. We have a very unique property that has a unique set of trees on it that I do not believe can sustain building with a single family residence without the removal of one of them. The arborist has suggested that this be the appropriate tree to remove under these circumstances so that we can help create a more appropriate buffer for the remaining grand oak on the property so that we can preserve it, so that we can help put that tree on a pedestal and make sure that it lives a long and healthy life without any encroachment from myself or any construction project on the property. So we're willing to do what is necessary to appease the board and to satisfy the law. I would say, you know, despite me being a lawyer, this isn't my necessarily area of expertise, but I have done a significant amount of research on the issue. I do think that this is, we fit within the legal authority that makes this an appropriately granted variance under the law. And I just hope that the board sees it the same way and allows me to construct this residence so that I can move my family in and live out our days. As I said in my application, I did reach out to my immediate neighbor at 911 White Point Boulevard, who's here with me today, does not oppose the cutting down of this tree. And I know he happily addressed the board as well at the appropriate time. I care to hear from him. So other than that, I just hope that y'all look at sort of the unique nature of this, and this is obviously, you know, single family residence is exactly what this neighborhood was intended for. And I hope y'all take that into consideration and approve my request for variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you would stay up here, please, we may have some questions for
Certainly,
you.
absolutely.
Any questions for the applicant, Mr. Savage or Ms. Hick or Mr. Smith, y'all want to jump in?
Corey,
On the Scott side. Yes.
so you got approval from one of your neighbors, is the other neighbor
So-
opposed to it, or is she just abstaining? Or-
Well, I would say that the other neighbors who I purchased the lot.
Yeah.
And I did not want to ask her to come speak on my behalf here, because I know that she's very attached to these trees. I would, and perfectly being frank with the board, as is my obligation, but anyway, but especially in my profession, is that I would expect that if she were called to task, she would not be in favor on it. But I would also say that she sold me this lot knowing that this was a very real possibility, one that we discussed prior to her selling me this lot, and one that is why we paid what we did for this lot, knowing that this, despite that we wanted to avoid this contingency, that this was a possibility. And so I, in being frank with you, did not ask her one way or the other to come here tonight, but I know I didn't want to put her in that position. She's, I'm not going to say elderly, but older, and I didn't want to, I want to have harmony with my neighbors. Assuming that I can get through this hearing and move into this lot, despite how upset some people might be with me at the end of this, I hope to be a good neighbor to everyone, and I just did not want to put her in that position to have to choose between me and her tree.
But she's very well aware
She's very well aware of what's going on.
of what's going on and has seen the.
She seemed to discuss it, at least the issue. She said, oh, I was hoping y'all were gonna be able to get around not putting the tree down, and I said, me too. Sorry, we're having to go this route, but I don't really have any other option. But I never asked her for her approval or asked her to come here and speak on what I have to say. I know how she feels about it, didn't want to put her in that position.
I have another comment.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And okay. You all right? Sorry. Is that you exhausted all resources to try to figure out if this is the best footprint type of house for this lot with the trees? Have you done your due diligence?
So, you
on
know,
that?
we have reached out to a number of architects. I would say that, you know, I haven't gone through the full architectural planning process in large part because, one, it's extremely costly, and getting a full architectural design, not knowing what my actual building footprint can be with the existence of these trees, So I guess the answer to that is candidly no, and that I haven't, gone the full design with architects, and had a number of options developed. Now, I will say that I've met with a number of builders, and walked through the lot with them and discussed, different potentials. Can we build on the other side of the trees, on the street side of the trees, or can we go between them in some meaningful way? But with the flood zone and with the OCRM line, the answer I've gotten is that it's just not possible for the size of home that, and not just the size of home really, but a size of home that is in line with the neighboring houses on this street. It's just not able to be constructed in large part because not only of the buffer we have to give from the trunk, but we can't build up either because of the canopy. And so our footprint is extremely limited from both a horizontal as well as a vertical standpoint. So sort of length, depth, and height is all extremely limited from the existing trees or this tree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Valerie, did you have any questions for the applicant?
I was just unclear, so you made the removal of the 2 trees on the water side part of your purchase contract. Have they already been removed? Because it did look like they've been removed to me, but I could be wrong.
They have not. I have not removed any trees from the property yet, in large part because I don't intend to expend any more money on this property if I can't build on it. So I'm kind of handcuffed in that regard. That I don't intend to cut any trees down if I can't remove one of these grand oaks.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
When I look at the plan, I see that you have, you're planning to, or you have permission to remove 2 30-inch oaks that are dead and dying. But it looks to me like there's also back there in the back 20-inch. Can you tell us about that? Because I don't see a circle around. I don't know what the canopy's doing. I don't know anything about the health of that tree, or it doesn't say that that one's going to be protected by markers. So what's the back tree?
So, quite frankly, the plan was to remove that tree. It is connected to the dying tree, so they're coming out of the same root structure. So as a lot of live oaks, it almost looks like one tree, except that I guess the arborist considers them 2 trees. I know on that drawing, they look far apart, but in fact, in reality, they're connected, I guess, at the bottom. The larger portion of that is the part that's largely dead. And I don't believe we could actually remove one without removing the other.
Ms. Wood, can you go back through the photographs? When we look at the photographs, the trees down on one.
I hope my memory's not wrong on that. That's my understanding. Oh, okay.
Are those the 2 trees?
That is correct. So that is not what I was thinking. So the 30-inch one, or 20-inch one, I suppose, is the one to the left.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Correct, I apologize. I'm not sure what I was thinking about there. But the plan would be to remove that.
I have the
Which one?
arborist
Also the
report.
20? I'm sorry. I can see that on this says to remove 2, and you want to move also the 20, so you want to move 3 trees, is that right?
So I do not believe that the 20 is, requires a variance because it's not a
The-
protected ground.
24 inches is where you need a permit. You
Okay,
wouldn't
so,
need a
so we're
permit.
gonna remove that one and it's not protected.
Right, and then I have the arborist report for those 2 trees, if anybody, I didn't include them in the packet, because they weren't.
I just didn't understand what was happening, because there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong here about that.
I apologize about the confusion on that.
Thank you. I do want to ask also, you talked about the OCRM line, and you said that, this lot is unique in that years of erosion have caused the OCRM line to move inland. So it didn't do it in any other lots up and down line?
Well, I would say that it most likely has. I would say all those lots have had residences on them for a long period of time, so that any home that was built within a setback of the OCRM line the OCRN line then encroaching and making that variance less than 35 feet wouldn't cause you to have to move the house from that. And the other point I would say is that a lot of the lots have built bulkheads on them to prevent the OCRN line, to prevent the marsh from encroaching into the property at that point, or seawalls and docks and a number of things. Because this lot remained without any sort of construction on it, there is no buffer or prevention from erosion on this particular lot.
Just one other, a couple other questions, maybe, just to clarify what I'm trying to figure out here. No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Savage, do you have any questions for the applicant?
So I think after hearing the questions, I have a good understanding of what's requested.
Okay. I have no questions either. Y'all ask all these great questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you all for your consideration.
Anyone else present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Get your hand up first if you come and say your name and address, please, sir.
Hey, Cam Wills, I live at 911 White Point, to the right of Culver. My wife is tending to a sick dog, she can't be here tonight. However, we're in favor, both of us are in favor of him utilizing his lot. I'm also a classified unlimited general contractor. I've seen the site plan, I know the lot well. I don't think you can utilize it with those trees. I'm also, as a contractor, worried about him building a house under either one of those trees and having a limb slam through a child's bedroom. You know, that happens all the time. We go through hurricanes. The house is on the harbor. So we're in favor of it. I spoke with Myrtle Ann, that is the seller of the lot. She knows what his intentions are clearly. She loves the trees, but she's totally aware that he needs to remove a tree to build a house. And I recently finished my house, and Kristen was great through the whole process, but regardless, that OCRN line, the grass growing into the lot establishes the critical line. So what's happened to his lot over the years is that grass has grown up. They come out and remark the line, and it's gone up significantly. I lost maybe 3/10 of an acre to that line creeping up on me. So with the front setback and the rear buffer and the side setbacks, he's got a tiny area to build a house. Frankly, if it was me, I might be asking for both trees to be removed to utilize the lot, and then mitigate, replant, and then donate to the city's tree fund. So that's my feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Please come state your name, address, and you also have 2 minutes.
John Terry, I live at 88 Boulevard, about 4 houses down. Just so everyone knows, and I don't know if the packet has the responses from people that were notified within 300 yard circumference circle. But the family is right across the street from the vacant lot. Just experienced a death in the family, the young father. And so the wife and the children are up in Maine right now. I don't know, they don't have any idea of saying this, but they may not have had a chance to comment or think about it. So just sort of put that out there. Also had a question about the variances. Is there a way to have a variance that allows you to encroach under the canopy somewhat?
We don't do questions and answers, you're just.
So that's a question that I've got, and, I mean, there are houses, mine being one of them, with, 5, 6 grand oaks, and, they're under the canopy. I mean, the house is, and, with different foundations and allowing roots to move around, and instead of putting down concrete, putting down pavers so that water can go with this one. There are lots of different mitigation strategies. I just want to, make sure that all of that was considered. Because, if that's a 200-year-old tree, nobody in this just see another one in that same place if you weren't here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking, Mr. Perry, and I assumed you were here in favor, but from what you said, I would take it that you were speaking in opposition to the variance. Is that correct? Because we need that straight for the record.
Yeah, you can call it opposition, but
Okay.
it's not strong opposition. I just wanted to make the board
Okay.
aware of some facts
Okay,
and
thank
some of
you.
my concerns.
So we'll just skip to speaking in opposition. We had one for and one kind of against, but just mainly getting some information out. And since Mr. Perry spoke, we will, is there anyone else here for or against? I don't see anyone. So at this time, we will call the applicant. If you would like to come back up and respond to Mr. Perry, that's fine.
Well, I think maybe just briefly, maybe to help sort of answer his question to some degree too.
You have 2 minutes.
Absolutely, and I'll be extremely brief, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So you can build underneath the canopies to some extent. So when looking at the drawing, I would say that it wouldn't be, and as you can see with the remaining live oak, we would be building underneath that canopy to some degree. But you also have to maintain certain distances from a lot of the main leaves. And you are limited certainly how far underneath those canopies you can go. And what I would say about a lot of the older homes here, especially when you ride up and down the road and you see a lot of the oaks that are right over the roof of a lot of those homes, much of that has happened, I think, after the homes have been constructed. But anyway, I think that would be my only response, is that we're not prohibited from coming under those canopies at all, but we are significantly prohibited from getting too close to the root structure and a lot of the main lines of the existing trees. That helps.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I close the hearing to the public. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve with the conditions set forth by staff, the 3 conditions. And if I could have a second for discussion, and then we can discuss it.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So it's open for us to discuss between ourselves now. Any comments?
Corey, I am not for cutting down the tree, but I don't see how it's possible to work around it. I really just don't understand, unless he's just gonna donate the land to the city and, or the town and call it a day. I just don't understand how his rights are not gonna, the best use of the land.
Any other comments? Ms. Valerie, would you like to say anything?
I looked at this and I really think that there's no, way that we should build a house without taking one of those 2 oaks, unfortunately, along with all the other trees on the lot. I would say that I think that, the applicant should also be responsible for mitigation to the 2 in the back that were previously approved. And, even if it's at a lesser, extent as far as that goes, because the permit that the owner of the property got prior to selling the property to the applicant, that approval for removing those trees conveyed with the property. And so I think, since it was a condition of the sale, also knowing that the permit conveyed with the sale of the property, that the applicant should also be responsible for mitigation, in addition to the 1 oak, to the 2 other 30 oaks at the back of the property.
It's my understanding that the reason those were approved to be taken down is because of their condition, disease, and their size. Is that, if we could deviate to Ms. Crane, is that correct?
Yes,
And therefore mitigation is not necessary. I believe there's a $25 or 50, is it 25?
25 per tree.
25 per tree fee for a damaged tree, but if it's small enough, there's no fee. Is that correct?
Right, we protect 24 inches and over unless it's an exempt species, so these two trees, were permitted without any mitigation required because of their health, and the other one doesn't have to be permitted because of its size.
Okay. Okay.
According to the plat that we were provided in the packet, it says that they're 230 inch. I don't know if that's a typo or not.
Yeah, so, I think,
One was 20, one's 20, and one's 30.
At the very back near the marsh, Amy, there's a 20 and a 30. And then within the footprint of the house, where the lower arrow is pointing, is another 30.
yeah,
It's keeping that.
No,
Yeah, he's getting into that one.
that has already been
Because it's down
permitted
there.
to go.
Oh,
that one,
it's damaged.
Yes,
The one
correct.
to the front.
And also it just says 30-inch oak, not live oak, so I suspect it's a water oak.
It's a laurel
A laurel oak.
Okay.
and I have the arborist report,
Yeah,
like I
it's-
said, I didn't include it because they were,
That one doesn't bother.
And the 20 inch most likely has the budding root system going on from 30 inch. And likely affected anyway, if the 30 inch comes down. I mean, that's the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I wish we could get all the trees planted we could, everywhere. I really hate to see any tree cut down. But I also look at the criteria, to me, in my mind, it looks like he meets all the criteria. And I just don't feel like we can do anything about, as far as mitigation goes on the ones that have already been permitted, other than the $25 fee that he's paying, for the ones that are of size.
I think we could tell him to hear what we're saying there and make a decision. Possibly.
Any other comments?
Again, thanks for, I would say because it was a condition of the sale, that he knew that they were gonna be an issue. And I don't know if there was a survey, obviously there was a survey done, but the applicant, wanted to not be responsible for coming before the CPA prior to the review this month. Yeah.
Sure, and
I'm not saying that's bad or anything else.
no, I
I think that reflects that his intent may have been to try and build around the two remaining oak trees. But I think that the approval, even though they are the property, that something should be, in the form of some sort of mitigation, whether it's $25 or not. And perhaps Mr. Wilson can speak to whether we could ask for more than the $25 fee.
Mr. Savage?
Thank you. Mr. Bree, I think I understand what you're saying, but the approval for removal of those trees was obtained by the prior owner. The basis of the approval is because the trees were not healthy and would be a hazard either to others on the property or would die anyway. The issue of mitigation for trees that were already deemed suitable for removal is not before us here. And our decision here is to decide whether or not the applicant, with regard to his request to remove one tree, fits within our criteria. And I personally agree with you, Mr. Bree, as well as Ms. Hill and Ms. Lyon, that I do think that the applicant has satisfied all of the criteria. There are exceptional conditions, and that is looking at the plat as to where these two trees are. They appear to be side by side, basically in the middle of that lot. We can see what the back setback line is, and we can see the front setback line. For the life of me, I couldn't see how you place a house, and I also have listened to the neighbor who represents the general contractor. So I think the applicant satisfies condition A. And these conditions do not generally apply to other properties the same for the reasons that those other homes were built prior to and encroachment of the OCR lines. Likewise, I think the applicant has satisfied F, C, that if we do not allow this, basically what we're doing is prohibiting the reasonable use of the property. I mean, This is a residential lot. Basically, we are demanding that Mr. Kidd maintain a park. I think that the applicant has satisfied F, D, there will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property and public good, especially because of the agreement to mitigate, where there's going to be a net, there's not going to be any net loss if there is a replacement inch for inch. Obviously, applicant satisfies FE, and obviously the applicant satisfies FF. And because of the zoning of this area, the applicant has satisfied FG. For these reasons, I can think of no reason why this board would not grant the variance, even though we all agree that we are in favor of preserving what we can with regard to the grandiose on the island. But there is simply no other way to allow the applicant to utilize this property for the purposes that it is zoned without allowing the removal of one tree. And I know that the applicant has not asked to remove two trees. And the plan appears that he has done his best to work around the situation to preserve those remaining trees. So personally, I would be in favor of Ms. Lyons' motion that we approve, subject to the conditions that she stated.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Any other comments, Mr. Smith?
I do have a few comments, just for the record. I see that Mr. Kidd has said that the denial of the variance would cause the property to be worthless. And I do take exception to that. I don't believe that it would be worthless. It would still have some value, maybe not as much as it has now, or what he thought it was going to, but it wouldn't be worthless. Secondly, I'd like to say that I don't think that necessarily that he says that the erosion is unique to his property, and I don't believe that to be so. I believe that it's not unique. However, I don't think that it says it has to be unique for it to generally apply. And so it says the conditions, it says the conditions do not generally apply, and I say they do not generally apply. It doesn't have to be unique for it to generally apply. And then further, I would say that as far as the house layout, I am an architect, and I can, we could make a house work there. As a matter of fact, I've worked on several very unusual houses that have had trees involved like this. However, our rule is that we are not to that we're supposed to look at whether or not this effectively prohibits or unreasonably restricts the property. And so I would say that that might cause him to build a house that the character of which is not necessarily in keeping with the neighborhood or with what he wants or what the neighbors would want, which would affect another one that is not necessarily good for the neighborhood. So I would say that unreasonably restricted. Yeah, I would think it means that it would be maybe an unreasonable restriction to build such an unusual house. So I don't think it's impossible. But having said that, I would support the motion to accept and approve the variance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Always appreciate your input, everybody's input. Any other comments or discussion at this point? Ms. Simmons, if you would then do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fabry,
Oh, would you like me to restate the motion first? Thank you, Mr. Savage.
and please be clear about what was read.
Yes, I will definitely do that. Thank you so much. Get ahead of myself here. So, Ms. Lyon, myself, I made the motion to approve the variance of removal of the grand tree with the 3 conditions set forth by staff. The applicant owner shall install tree barricades around the grand trees on property as described in 153.334 of the ordinance throughout the duration of construction. Prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant by submitting a mitigation plan to the zoning administrator as described in 153.334 E2 of the ordinance that includes inch per inch replacement as we heard from Ms. Crane and discussed. So that is the motion on the floor to approve with those conditions. And please, Ms. Simmons, if you will now do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Fabry,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Savage. Aye. Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Chairwoman Lyon.
Aye. So the ayes have it unanimously. It has been approved with conditions. Again, I made the motion, Chairwoman Lyon, Mr. Smith seconded the motion. Everyone voted in favor. Your final decision, Mr. Kidd, will be mailed to you within 10 working days. You can contact the planning or zoning staff with any questions about your approval and your conditions. Additional business. It does not appear we have a meeting in August. I think we're getting close to that deadline. Is that correct?
I think it was Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So it doesn't look like we're going to meet in August. I hope COVID doesn't continue to blow up, so we can meet again in person. Next time we do have a case, it is absolutely wonderful to see everybody in person and not through the computer on Zoom. Although it's a great option, and so hopefully we can all stay healthy and well. I'd like to give a special thanks to staff. It's a lot of work putting all this together, and y'all really do a great job. And with Simmons, we could not do without you, and all your hard work. I think this town would fall apart without you. So I just wanted to mention that before we adjourn. Does anyone else have anything? Any other business? Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for participating back on too.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.